Hello and welcome to a very long-winded video explanation about the data center that has been proposed. I know it's very early to harp on all the details. However, everything I go over in this is very general and includes things that have happened across other parts of the country where these data centers have been put in. I brought receipts. I'm not just talking out of my you-know-what. So, like I said, it's a little long, so sit back, relax, pop some popcorn, and buckle up for the entertainment. I'm hoping you'll stick with me to the end. For those of you that don't know me, Drew Baker. I'm sure most of you don't know who I am. I don't know who most of you are. I was not born and raised here. I am from the Cleveland area. I've lived here since 2019 when my parents moved back. They are from the area after my grandfather died. And I was a little skeptical at first. There's not a whole lot to do here, honestly, for a young person. And at first I was worried about that. You know, there's not much to do, go out in town. But I liked the quietness of it. I liked the reclusiveness of it. I could be involved with people and be social if I wanted to. But if I didn't want to, I could come out to more remote areas and just piss off for a day or two. And I think that's part of the charm of the area. As I'm sure some of you have seen by now from the Daily Chief Union, there's a proposed data center in Upper Sandusky now. I can't say I'm surprised. I figured it would be a matter of time. The entire place is flat. There's not a whole lot of people. Wyandotte County is the 6th least populated county in the entire state of Ohio. So among 88 counties, we're the 82nd least densely populated. So I figured it was only a matter of time. Didn't think it would happen this soon, to be completely honest with you, but here we are. I see a lot of people talking about, the downfalls, pitfalls, drawbacks of data centers getting put in, and I have to say, they're right. You probably thought sitting there, oh, this is some young buck. He's probably gonna be like, technology's the way forward. Wrong. In as few words as possible, fuck data centers. But don't take my word for it. I didn't want to do something that would be some long-winded read on that would get lost in obscurity, or some comment that would get buried and hardly anyone would read. So I figure, why not take my talents to the big screen? Or the little screen in this case. But don't let me just sit here and emotionally rant at you. I brought information. Now, before I get started, all of my information that I'm going to be sharing with you in terms of facts and opinions, all the sources are going to be cited on the post, so don't take my word for it. I'm just some guy. Check out the sources, look for yourself. I encourage you to. Projects like these have been put in other states. They have had similar impacts, but without further ado, let's just get started. Okay. So I wanted to go over what are some of the aspects of the data center that is proposed here, based on what we know from the Daily Chief Union article. Okay, the data center is going to cost about $900 million, so nearly $1 billion on 100 acres. Okay, so it's a 100-acre data center. They're going to supply 50 acres for their electrical output that they are planning on having. They did say that there will be no electrical fee hikes for people in the area, which, if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. But what do we know about the actual data center itself? Well, the power plant proposed on the 50-acre lot for the power plant is going to create 150 megawatts of power. Now, I know there's a lot of obscurity. People throw out megawatt. So I figured I would contextualize that for you. To put that in perspective, the entire city of Upper Sandusky every year uses 33.3 megawatts of power. It's not published data in terms of megawatt usage. So you need to do a little bit of math. I did a little bit of math. The city uses 291,550 megawatt hours per year. And to get megawatt usage, all you have to do is divide by how many hours are in a year. The hours per year cancel out, the division. So 291,550 megawatt hours per year divided by 8,760 hours in a year gives you roughly 33.28 megawatts. I rounded up. Sue me. For those of you really good at math, like me, you will notice one 100-acre plant is going to use 5 times the power in a year than the entire city combined. Now, one thing you know about power, electricity, power output, is it generates heat. I am sure some of you have seen that the proposed 40,000-acre data center over in Utah, made by Mr. Wonderful, is going to impact temperatures both day and nighttime. I can't really speak to how much or if there's going to be an increase, but I can promise you it's not going to be nothing. I mean, that much power in one place, it's going to generate a lot of heat. Other benefits that they had mentioned were, you could tap into the power and internet with lower latency times. All that means is that there is going to be a smaller gap in time between when you request something on the internet and when it is delivered. Adjacent properties could tap into the power because realistically an adjacent property is going to use such an insignificant amount of the power generated there that it's not going to make a difference. But those are just the positives that they said. What are other positives of data centers in general? I am so happy you asked that question. Let's go over some of the positives of data centers in general. Number one, you got centralized management. It reduces the burden of in-house management. All that means is more data and information is stored in one place, so there is less of a technical strain on companies to hire out and do more work as far as managing assets. Okay, so if more things, both hardware and software, are in one centralized location, you need fewer staff, you can vertically integrate things a lot more easily, and maintaining that gets easier. That also goes hand in hand with enhanced security. Because everything is in one place, data, software, hardware, it's a lot easier and more straightforward to be able to make sure that it is secure. I already mentioned low latency for people in the area. Fiber optic network is going to be greatly expanded on because of the amount of data and throughput that's going to be going through this facility. Job creation. I put job creation in air quotes here. So realistically, the job creation is going to be, they said, approximately 100 employees. Wow. 1 employee per acre. How lucky. For context, just to contextualize that, everyone knows Kimmel Corporation. They employ, according to Marion Maid in 2025, a year ago, they employed roughly 60 people. On their own LinkedIn page, they say that they have 51 to 200 employees. I mean, that's broken down by company size, but you get the gist. Comparable in size, 100-acre data center, 100 employees, roughly. And now you might be thinking, oh, that's really nice. 100 whole employees in the area. Here's the problem. It's going to be a lot of software engineers, electrical engineers, very, very white collar, highly educated positions. So, and this is not a dog on the area, but realistically, let's be honest. Upper Sandusky is a blue collar area, okay? A lot of people work their hands. I do. So saying that there's going to be all these highly skilled, highly specific IT, software engineering, electrical engineering jobs in the area, no one in Upper is going to be getting those jobs. They're going to be hiring from outside the area. And if you might think, oh, well, people will definitely move here. Maybe. It's a lot of speculation as to what exactly is going to happen. I mean, if you want to take that gamble, be my guest. I would not bet on it. Especially if someone's already established in another city and they've been there for years with their family. Let's say they live in Marysville. Would you pick up and leave Marysville if you have a family and young children, rip them out of school, move to Upper where there's a data center and a soybean processing facility? Probably not. Another positive, infrastructure upgrades. I also put that in air quotes. Fiber optic and electrical networks are going to be upgraded and improved, expanded upon, because the data center only works and is profitable while it's running. So what that means, uptime needs to be as close to 100% as possible. Meaning that power outages, bad. Realistically, one of the positives would be power outages would probably be a lot less. They happen somewhat frequently if you live in town. Not to the point where I'm horribly inconvenienced by them and my day is ruined. I mean, as we all know, most of the weather just kind of splits when it gets to upper. And then finally, tech ecosystems. It attracts related technologies to the area. Maybe it might, if other companies see that the city is willing to give the green light to put in one of these data centers, then maybe other companies come in. And maybe, wow, another 100 jobs will be made. How lucky we are. But that brings me to the not so good, the negatives. And you know what, honestly, I can't do this. I need to put the pit vipers on for this one. All right, that's better. Now I feel like I can rant properly. Okay, negatives. Noise! If you read the article, they said some stupid nonsense like the engines will have a sound deadening system installed. Two questions. One, were they talking about the backup diesel generators? Because engines has nothing to do with the noise that is created from a data center. For those of you in the know, it is essentially a massive GPU farm, okay, for data processing. GPUs with up-to-date VRAM. If you know, the 50 series cards from NVIDIA, as well as their commercial computing cards for GPUs, have the most modern VRAM systems that are the fastest and have the most short-term memory, as well as the most speed. That's part of the reason why NVIDIA is not currently making 40 and 50 series GPUs for the market, because they are all going to commercial sales. Another reason why everything is so freaking expensive right now for computers. So you have a data center like this one that is proposed to thank for that. Sound reduction, before I get too far off track. Sound reduction. I didn't know if they were talking about the backup generators, but one thing you might not know, with that many GPUs, CPUs, all in one place in a 100-acre farm, is that they make a ton of noise. They make a ton of noise. You can soundproof the dickens out of that building. It won't matter. And don't take my word for it. Look at these clips of other soundproofed data centers in other areas.
When a new sound started invading their homes.
It's just a high-pitched drone sound.
I can hear it inside my house, and that's what concerns me.
Does that sound like completely quiet and noise not being a problem? Doesn't to me. Another big one, another huge one, water pollution. So I'm sure that a lot of you have seen other clips online of people that live near or around data centers turning on their faucets and just brown crap coming out. And it wasn't like that before the data center get put in. And you know, I'm not one, I wanted to look into how that's possible. What caused that to happen? I don't want to say data center goes in, water gets dirty. So I wanted to look into why is that the case? For a lot of you who might not know, GPUs and CPUs get very, very hot when they're running and they need cooled. Now, something like at home, like on my PC, air cooling with heat sinks and a fan is enough. But when you stack 100 acres of GPUs and CPUs next to each other, it generates a ton of heat, and you have to switch from air cooling to water cooling. And boy, does it use a lot of water. And I don't say a lot of water lightly. Similar data centers have been put in states like Florida, 100 acres, and they use roughly 1 to 5 million gallons of water a day. A day. 1 to 5 million a day. I am not making that up. I am shocked. Now, the real problem isn't that they're using that much water. It does create its own problems in and of itself in terms of like strain on ecosystem, aquifers, things like that. But the real problem is that the water that comes in is treated chemically. Now, what kind of chemicals are they using? They're using biocides to make sure that nothing can grow inside of any of the tubing, the delivery systems of the water to the GPUs and CPUs. Anti-corrosion agents so that nothing rusts, degrades, and that no contaminants inside of lines get to the computing hardware that's inside of the facility. Now you might think, okay, well, these are in such small amounts that when it is eventually recycled or discharged, that it's really only going to be trace amounts. Aha! You would be incorrect, because what ends up happening is because of all the heat generated with these hardware components, almost 80% of the water that is used gets evaporated. If you notice something, heavy metals and other additives don't evaporate with that water. So the 20% that's left is a more highly concentrated version of all the chemicals, additives, treatment, trace amounts of metals from the system that it picks up, including but not limited to zinc, copper, iron, gold, platinum, silver, and guess what? When it eventually does get discharged, guess where it goes? You guessed right, the ground. I think I need to do like a Jeopardy style system, get a board up here, bring Alex Trebek back. What is ground contamination for 800? The other thing too is it creates a lot of wastewater overload. That 1 to 5 million gallons of used water has to go somewhere. And it's, 80% of it does get evaporated. 20% of the 5 million is still 1 million gallons of highly concentrated additive water that has to go somewhere. And it goes back into the ground.
And all this water gets dumped on farmland around here. And because the farmland is so sandy and there's so much water that's so highly contaminated, it's sort of a perfect recipe for polluting the groundwater.
That polluted water, dense with nitrates, then seeps so far into the ground that wells become contaminated.
Local aquifers get contaminated. If it does eventually leach into the groundwater, great. If it's pouring rain when they do a discharge, that all goes back into the system. It gets washed away back into the streets, gets washed away back into the sewer system, sends right back to the water treatment facility. And because of the quantity that is discharged, I worry that the treatment facility can't keep up. That is my concern. And that's not even getting into property value. No one wants to live near a data center. Hey, do you want to live next to a 100-acre box that hums constantly at an inconvenient volume for everyone within a mile radius? No? Looks like you're afraid of progress, liberal. But that's not even getting into the most simple aspect of it. All the other things are complicated, nuanced, whatever. What do we know? Like I said, these things generate an astronomical amount of heat. The water gets heated, in a cooling system. You have to think of this like a giant engine in terms of the cooling system. The hot water getting pumped through is like the antifreeze in a radiator, except in a radiator, it has cooling fins, it has fans, it has constant moving air when you're going down the road to help cool the system down. In this, it just gets discharged. And hot water getting discharged back into the ecosystem, bad. It's something simple that you might not really think about, but that amount of hot water getting pumped back into the ecosystem, forgetting all of the contaminants and treatments that are added to it, can wreck local environments. And look, I'm not some nature boy who is sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya with all my buddies, but I like to see things not dead. They look nice when they're alive. Even moderate temperature changes can have horrific impacts on local wildlife, flora and fauna. I mean, if you think about how many different species here affect within a certain temperature range, you all of a sudden go ahead and up that, even 5 to 10 degrees, dead. Now, I personally don't like my water full of dead fish. We just had that fiasco of things smelling awful with the reservoir. That was a whole lot of fun, if you all remember that. Imagine that, but constantly. Sounds like a great time, doesn't it? But it brings me to the point of why? Why is this happening? And I could go on some mega rant about how corporations look at rural America and think that they're a bunch of stupid people that we can walk all over. And to some extent, I do think that that is the case. They think we're a bunch of country hicks. They think that we're uneducated and we're stupid and we don't know what's best for ourselves. I think it's part of the reason that they come into places like this and do this. But what do we know about the city? Why might the city greenlight this project? I might make some enemies here. I don't care. I'm gonna tell it anyway. What do we know? I think it all comes down to financials. Now, why do I say financials? I'm sure, as all of you know, the recent levy has been passed to increase income tax from 1 to 1.75%. Now, whether you voted for it or not, it's here. What is the city gonna do with all that extra money? I don't know. A pool, a legacy building, police, firefighters, who knows? I haven't gotten a clear answer. We've gotten a lot of whispers around the edges about what might be happening, which is fantastic. I love to know where my taxes are going. But what do we know? I know for a fact that the city had 0 debt 7 years ago. No debt 7 years ago. And that's according to an audit done by the state. I know. I looked into it. But what do they have now? Well, now the city has $53.5 million in liabilities. $53.5 million in debt in 7 years. What happened? I don't know. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, they've passed this levy. We got the Louis Dreyfus plan in. Surely we'll be raking in money now. Maybe. The most recent data I have is from 2022. So nearly $53.5 million in debt as of 2022. And what was the revenue of the city? $4.75 million. Okay, big hole, but we have a big shovel to dig ourselves out with. Except what was the net income of the city that year? $435,000. Does that not terrify you a little bit? Let me put it this way. If you are an individual in $1 million in debt, and after you pay your expenses, you pay your home, you pay your car, feed yourself, keep the lights on, feed your kids, clothe yourself, gas, etc., all your expenses, you're left with like 10 grand. Now, are you looking at that 10 grand and that $1 million mountain going, man, I got a lot to work with here. I can totally get rid of that $1 million in debt immediately. No! You can't! Wait, the numbers don't make sense! How did it happen? Okay, well that's really bad. But luckily, the city does have assets totaling around $88 million. Now this is 2022. Several other acquisitions have been made since then. I can't speak to exactly what it's gonna be or what it is currently. But safe to say, I would, give it another couple million. I think 90 million in assets is a safe bet for what the city has on its plate. Now, the problem, it feels like these projects are being greenlit for the sole purpose of getting a bigger shovel to dig themselves out of a hole with. The only problem, when they're digging themselves out of this hole, it feels like all the residents are getting hit in the face with the dirt. Oh, we need to get more tax revenue. Okay, let's get more tax revenue. Oh, by the way, we have a massive soybean plant that's gonna absolutely wreck noise quality and pollution, tank local property values around it, and increase semi-traffic to an astronomical degree that we don't know. We don't know. Data center. Well, it's gonna, negatively impact the local ecosystem. There's no way around it. It's not gonna be a net zero. It's gonna be detrimental to the local area from an ecosystem perspective. Economically, I think it's gonna be a wash. You hire 100 very specific, highly skilled jobs from people that, again, not to dog on the area, but definitely don't live here. I'm sorry. If there are 100 software engineers, electrical engineers, computer engineers, other people that live here that are going into running, maintaining, and operating a data center, show me. If you believe that, it blows me away because everywhere around the country, and here's the part that I don't get. Everywhere around the country, you see local people being vehemently against projects like this getting put in their town. For the same concerns that I listed: noise pollution, property value degradation, ecosystem strain, potentially negative economic impacts of the area. Oh, but we get faster internet. So? And it makes you wonder, Why? Why do these projects keep getting greenlit even though the local population vehemently disagrees? I think it goes back to government officials not understanding what their job is as representatives. Key word there. You see it in federal government, you see it in state government. How many times have your elected officials done something that you said, that's not what I voted for? Same thing here. You voted for these people to represent your interests. Take their own interests and opinions aside and represent what you, the people that put them in that place, wanted them to do. What you want as a local population. Their job is to represent your interests, opinions, and ideas. And things like this happen because they take that power away from you. It is government overreach in its truest form. This isn't political. This isn't, okay, it is inherently political. This isn't a left versus right, Republican, Democrat. It's not. It is a government failing to do its intended purpose, which is to represent the will of the people. And the will of the people, in this instance, as far as I can tell, is that it shouldn't be here. If local government was going to do its job, represent your interests, it wouldn't get put in. And if you go back and look at the pros and cons that I listed of a data center, the pros almost overwhelmingly benefit other corporations and other special interest groups, while the negatives directly impact you, the people. And I think that's very telling as to what projects like this hold for the future. They don't benefit the residents in the long run. If anyone in the comments can tell me personally what overarching benefit there is to a data center getting put in for local residents of the town outside of adjacent properties can tap into the power and some people have access to faster internet, I would love to hear what they are. But it seems to me like the downsides of something like this far outweigh the benefits. And it makes no viable sense to me why a project like this, with such public outcry, would get greenlit by the people we elected to represent ourselves. Show up at the next town hall meeting. Show up at the next city council meeting. Show up if and when there's a town hall for this and voice your concerns. But don't come at it from an emotional standpoint. You have to hit these people with facts, data. Do some research into this. Don't talk about how it will negatively impact you personally. You have to talk about how it'll affect the community, the ecosystem, noise pollution, property values. You have to talk about things like that. Things that they don't have a leg to stand on. Bring up groundwater contamination from other similar sites. Bring up noise pollution from other similar sites. Bring up power lines. The really big one that no one talks about is eminent domain. I can't tell you how many stories there are of people saying, I didn't want to give up my property and sell to a data center, but because they had a government contract, my property was eminent domain to run power lines, different areas, and it's happening all over the country. Who's to say that they don't want to expand in the name of progress and take your property next? Run more power lines through your house. That is a little bit of fear mongering. So I mean, there's no saying whether or not that's actually gonna happen. Why take the chance? Put your foot down. Make it so that the people you elected to represent your interests do the job and represent you. And make sure that projects like this that are abhorrently bad for the community do not get greenlit. Well, I, for one, feel better getting that off my chest.